This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, let's go. Chris Perkins is ready to go, right? All right, let's do it. Bring him on. Let's talk a little Dolphins football. The great Chris Perkins. You know, Perk, first of all, I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing good, Big O. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Can't complain.
Good deal, good deal.
Hey, man, not that anybody would care. Not that anybody would care if I did complain. But, Perk, I want you to know the other day I played for the folks the Steve Shapiro screw up with you on the air.
The great prick. Legendary, baby, legendary.
Yes. I had some fun with that, and I played that one because I have it in the vault. I have a lot of stuff in the vault. I have Alonzo Mourning, like he told everybody, all right, everybody turn off your, because Ira said something to him about it was the guy from Boston, and it was like a rookie. And Ira asked him a question, something about like challenging him or something like that. Right. And Zoe, you covered Zoe.
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, everybody, just turn off the cameras right now. But I didn't turn off my Marantz. There's no way I was turning. I never used, I've never played it in public ever. I have it there, and Zoe just rips into Ira for like 45 seconds.
So, man, I don't think you were officially on the beat until Zoe ripped you.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And by the way, let's straighten this shit out first and foremost. Zoe's not a jerk.
No.
Zoe is an outstanding human being, fantastic. But when he was on game day, he had this focus. And you had to understand where he was. It was like, you know what? I don't go into locker rooms anymore in baseball. Do pitchers still don't talk the day before they throw? Is that still a thing?
The day of the game. The day of the game.
The day of the game. That's what it is.
They don't talk the day before, the day of, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm getting a guy that was actually a jerk, Alex Fernandez, mixed up because he wouldn't talk to you until 2 days before his start. That's what it was. That's what it was. But anyway, but Zoe would be in a zone, and it was not that he was just grumpy at that moment.
Look, Big O, here's what I've always said about Zoe: the three most intense, competitive people I ever covered in order: Pat Riley, Alonzo Mourning, and Will Clark. I mean, those three, and Zoe, you've got to understand, Zoe was molded by John Thompson and Pat Riley. So and he was intense already, but once you go through being molded by those two, you're going to be super intense. And yeah, God bless Zoe, one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, Zoe definitely.
But if you were talking shit, he would call you out on it.
Yeah, definitely. He would call you out. And that's the thing about that was fun. So I have some of those moments in my vault. I just but the one that happened with you was in public and everybody saw it. So
yeah, that's good.
I could use that one still, so I could use it, but it was funny. All right. So a buddy of mine called me this morning, goes, why does Tyreek wait till now to have a wrist surgery? And I go, bro, it's screws. It's part of the healing process. They have to take it out at a certain stage. This is the stage where, okay. Well, will he heal in time? That's the legitimate question now. Healing and all that, that's the part we don't know, and we're kind of left in the dark, right, Perk?
Yeah, when Tyreek had his first wrist surgery in February, Mike McDaniel said that he would be ready for training camp. I don't remember if he said for the start of training camp or at some point in training camp. I'm guessing that time schedule is still the same because all they did was remove screws that were placed in there in February. And look, you know how training camp is nowadays, Big O. The veterans don't do anything except joint practices. So Tyreek already, those guys already weren't going to do much during training camp. If he's ready by midway through training camp, that most likely that's good enough.
What'd you think of the draft?
I didn't like it at all.
Really?
They had they had 3 picks in the first 98, and they needed volume. They turned that into 2 picks in the first 37, and they didn't get a cornerback. So that's what I don't like about it. They made it a 2-man draft because 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks, they aren't going to be impact players in year 1, not from scrimmage, not usually. Now, maybe it happens, but I wouldn't
defensive tackles have a chance to be rotational players. That I've seen that happen at times. That what's the name of the kid that from LSU they drafted? Godchow. He became a rotational player right away. And by the way, so did Taylor, that they drafted in the 6th round that year. Those guys became rotational tackles, not standouts. You're counting on your first rounder to be that guy there. But, here's where I disagree with you. And I thought you would like it because my theme all for the last few months was that the draft has to be about the fat boys and stop being the disorderlies. Okay?
Yes. Right. I see what you did.
Okay.
I like that movie. I like the Fat Boys.
Exactly. And you went and got me fat boys on the offensive and defensive lines. And you're like one of the few guys in the media that has been saying for years, bro, build the lineup, run the shit out of the ball. Everything else falls into place. Like I say all the time, run, dominate with the run, punch people in the mouth, and especially with Tua, give him play action and stuff like that. Dude, he's going to kill you, bro. But if you have a line that's a sieve and he's got 2 seconds to throw and you don't have a running game and all that, you're treating him like you have Marino. And, bro, you don't have Marino back there. You have a different kind of quarterback. You can't Breeze and guys like that, they can't play like Marino. You have to give them a running game and an offensive line. And that's why I thought you would like the idea that at least they went out they got the right guard from Pittsburgh, who's a big, tough kid. Now they got Savania, another big, tough kid. Then they got the guy next to Sealer and Grant, another big, tough kid. And even in the 5th round, they got another big, tough kid. So I thought you would kind of be on board because, dude, they needed meat and they didn't have enough on both sides.
They did need beef, and they got beef. But there's a couple of things here, Big O. When you talk about the run game, you still have a 188-pound running back there. I know they got Alexander Madison. I know they got Ollie Gordon II. Ollie Gordon II is a 6th-round pick. I just don't know if he's going to get a fair shot behind the draftee Achane and the draftee Jalen Wright. So that's one thing. But we'll see. They did get some beef, but still, Achane is your primary guy. Here's the other thing, and a column that I've written that I'll probably publish tomorrow, maybe later. But with James Daniels and Jonah Savaiinaea, and forgive me, Jonah, I'm probably butchering your last name. When we had the conference call yesterday with Aaron Brewer and Zach Sealer also, Aaron Brewer was talking about he's glad that they got big guys up front in Daniels and Savaiinaea, both 300-pounders. But Brewer said, how we are here. We're not stationary big guys. But
Savaiinaea can move.
But here's the thing, Big O. The Dolphins still want agility. They don't want road graders as offensive linemen, right? Rob Hunt was agile. And so that's what what Brewer was saying is, I like that these guys are big, but they're not going to fit in here unless they can run, unless they can move. And so I think we might have more of the same just in 300-pounders.
Well, I'm told Savaiinaea can move, so he does fit this scheme because he can get to the second level, and I think James Daniels can move. Now, is Patrick Paul that kind of guy? No, but you're pretty much not going to do that much with your tackles. If anything, Austin Jackson will be the guy that you'll pull some stuff like that because he's super athletic.
But my point is,
I think they want the guy that's in the tweener. Not that he's a road grader. Not that he's light on the shorts completely, but that he can do a little bit of both where he does bring a little punch and a little athleticism at the same time.
Yeah, they want Rob Hunt, right? That's what they want. And I don't know. You know, Bruce seemed to be saying the size is one thing, but we want the agility, or else it won't work. So I'm wondering if they just got big guys who they're not bruisers, they're not maulers, they're big guys who are light on their feet and fit this outside zone scheme rather than the maulers that you want to push people back in short yardage or goal line situations. We'll see, but I thought it was very interesting the way Brew phrased it.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, what'd you think of the Tyreek comments?
Oh, goodness gracious. Tyreek, man. Tyreek is so freaking exhausting, Big O. Listen, I like Tyreek personally. He can be a lot of fun, but he's a lot more fun when he's gaining 1,700 yards receiving, right? You know, Tyreek is just being Tyreek and leaving Tua out of his top five. He shouldn't have had Tua in the top five last year. And he shouldn't have said 3 years ago, Tua is the most accurate quarterback in the league. You know, I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to pump up Tua over Patrick Mahomes and all that kind of stuff. You know, Tyreek, as I wrote today, Tyreek lives a clickbait life, and we can't help clicking. And it's irritating to me that we have to react to every little thing that Tyreek does, but people do care. And I'm in a job where I have to get numbers and I have to respond to what people like. And so, you know, sometimes it just irritates me that anytime Tyreek does something on social media, we've got to react. But I've got to give the people what they want, Big O. And so that's kind of what I think about Tyreek. It's more Tyreek being Tyreek. Tyreek wins again because he gets the publicity and the attention, and here we are talking about him. But look, he's the best player on your team. He's a future Hall of Famer, and you know you have to deal with a lot of his stuff because of who he is and what he does for your team and your offense.
Yeah, but as I was saying yesterday on the show or the day before, the fact that you've got to depend on so many undependable people. I'm sorry, undependable people. Tyreek is undependable.
Yep.
Tua physically is undependable.
Yep.
And Mike McDaniel is undependable. He can't call a good game. He doesn't even know how to stick to the run. So whether it's Madison or Ali, you give him a bigger back. I don't even know he'll use him because you had Chris Brooks and then you didn't use him. And then the following year, you see him running over you, in a game. And it's just like, okay, well, you had a guy like that. And it's just, okay, you had Jonnu Smith and he didn't use really Jonnu the way he should have in the first month. With all the numbers Jonnu put up, it was after the fact. You know what I mean? So there's so much inconsistency on that team. That's why, for me, I don't even expect them to make the playoffs, to be quite honest, because this team's not as good as the one from 2 years ago, which was a really good team, and the team from last year. And because of your failures in those 2 years, now you've put yourself in a position where, bro, nobody sacrificed for you. Nobody really wanted to stay. The people you have, it's because they're trapped. You paid for them, and so they're stuck here, pretty much. But it's not a good situation. It's just not.
It's not a good situation. But I'll say this, Big O. I'm not going to lower the bar for Mike McDaniel, and I've been on Mike harder than anybody in this market, and because I think that they did a great job of accumulating talent, Mike and Chris Greer. They've deployed this talent incorrectly. The coaching, the offense has been it's been shut down against good teams for the last 2 years.
Terrible.
And I've given these numbers many times. In the last 2 years, the Dolphins are 11-0 when Tyreek has 100 or more yards. They're 7-16 when he has 99 or fewer. And in those 2 years, when Tyreek has 100, they average 35 a game. When he's got 99 or fewer, they average 18 a game. Beyond that, Tyreek does not have a 100-yard game against a playoff team in the last 2 years, a span when the Dolphins are 2-10 against playoff teams. It all revolves around Tyreek. They haven't developed a run game. They haven't developed
That's what it is.
Right. Exactly. They're so predictable, Big O. The good teams know all we have to do is stop Tyreek. For all of this pre-snap motion and speed and all that kind of stuff, all we have to do is stop Tyreek, and that offense is stuck. And
Yeah.
that's what I blame Mike McDaniel for. I admire and respect him for coming in 2022, and you have this plan of speed, 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 and you were going to outrun everybody. That's fine. It didn't necessarily work. In 2023, they doubled down on it. And yes, you went 11-6, but you 1-6 against playoff teams.
Right.
You got beat by an average score of 32-16 against playoff teams. You still didn't change in 2024. Instead, you gave out contract extensions. What are we doing here, Big O?
I don't even know. I don't even know how Mike McDaniel got a contract extension. That one was. I don't know how you guaranteed Tyreek any more money, which that was just absolutely stupid. And then giving Mike McDaniel, it reminded me of giving Philbin an extension after the Minnesota win. It was like, wow,
I remember that. Right.
What are you doing
in the locker room?
Yeah, like what are you doing, bro? Like this is meaningless what you just did. What are you doing? Why are you extending this, man? And and this would have opened the door for you. I got to tell you, the way they handled this offseason, is there any shot, Perk, that the Mike McDaniel hire is not as much a Chris Grier hire, but it was influenced by other people and he kind of went along with it? Is there any
chance? There's a chance of that, definitely. I don't think Chris Grier has that kind of final decision making.
So follow me on this, okay? Okay, first of all, let's go with his history. He comes from the Parcells-Belichick tree. His dad worked for Parcells and Belichick. In fact, influenced the Tom Brady pick, okay? He worked for Belichick. The first time he gets his job and he gets the chance to hire somebody, he hires a Belichick disciple. His brother is a hockey player and a general manager. His dad is a hard ass too. It's a whole hard ass family type thing. McDaniel is not that kind of personality, not really what the Grier family and tree is even associated with. That's one. Then on the other side is I look at this offseason and I go, holy shit, you did a really smart move. Not for you this year, but for next year, you made a 4th rounder into a 3rd rounder. That's a super smart move. Very selfless on your part to do that. When you desperately needed to save your ass, you didn't go and start guaranteeing more money from the future. You didn't go take money from to a salary or somebody else to start paying for more free agents, right? You didn't sacrifice any of the future. You kind of stayed very, what's it called?
In the moment.
Conservative. Yeah. And so again, and you've got Weaver in place. And so I'm wondering if behind the scenes, the hierarchy has talked about, okay, this isn't good. This is not going good. The players, we got player revolting against Mike. I can tell you for a fact there are people in the building that don't believe in Mike whatsoever. Okay. There are people in the building that are expecting to get fired. Okay. I'm just telling you that for a fact. But anyway, so I'm wondering, they're thinking, hey, let's prepare ourselves just in case. If it doesn't go well for Mike, we've given him enough rope here. We'll let him go, and we'll get Weaver in as an interim coach right away, and we can keep him and lock him in and get our future coach, because we're not going to be the sexiest of destinations. We're not going to get the pick of the litter anymore. So we got a guy that could be the pick of the litter. Let's keep him. So I almost feel like there's a behind-the-scenes plan in place for Weaver just in case it does go awry with Mike McDaniel. And there's a part of me that is wondering if Chris Grier was so selfless in those moments. Is he safe? Has there been something behind the scenes? Because Mike McDaniel has got to be going, what do you mean we're giving up that 4th round? We need that right now. Nah, we're going to save it for next year. Huh? You mean we're not going to guarantee anybody to buy more free agents? I need this year. So you gotta. I just wonder, dude. I'm a little cynical because it's 35 years of this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I can't see any scenario in which Grier and McDaniel are separated. Either they both stay or they both go.
I
because
agree.
they're I look at Greer as just kind of he's kind of Instacart for Mike McDaniel, right? Mike McDaniel punches up the groceries he wants, Chris Greer delivers them. I don't know that Chris Greer has any kind of a vision. If Chris Greer had a vision for the Dolphins, what do you think it would be? I mean, it's always been the coach's vision,
It would have
right?
been what we're seeing right now of make an investment on the interior of the offensive and defensive line and all those kind of things. That's what I think it is. You know,
I
that's
just see. I haven't seen that under Greer. I see the vision of Mike McDaniel. I see the vision of Brian Flores. I see the vision of Adam Gase. I don't see anything
that's
from
fair.
Chris Greer.
That's
And
fair.
as far
Fair.
as far as the replacement, I'll say this. Weave has got to be viewed as a replacement, and to me, kind of the trouble spots, the spots that Mike McDaniel has to get past for a midseason firing, the first 4 or 5 games, right? If you have 4 losses in those first 4 or 5 games, 0-4, 1-4, I'm not sure you stick around. 0-3, you can make it. 1-3, you can still dig your way out. But and so 1-4, 0-4, I think are the thresholds for McDaniel. And as far as Weaver, Big O, you've got to look on your staff after you passed over guys like Lou Anarumo and Zach Taylor and Dan Campbell, Todd Bowles. You had Ben Johnson, but he wasn't ready to become a head coach at the time.
Neither was Dan.
Here.
Neither was Dan
And
Campbell.
neither was Dan Campbell, right? Dan had to go to New Orleans. But you've had such good guys on your staff. You've got to look from within, not just for interim, if it comes to that, but for next head coach. I think McDaniel got this job because they wanted to swing from disciplinarian, hard-ass Brian Flores to somebody who's more of a player's coach, Mike McDaniel. They were on extremes on both ends. They need somebody more centrist, and I think we would be that guy. There's other people, plenty of others who would be that guy, but I do think that Flo and McDaniel are just polar opposites, and they swung the pendulum too far to both sides in both cases.
Yeah, it's just the way they handled this offseason was not an offseason of somebody trying to save their jobs. That's all. That just did not. Normally you're desperate. Normally you're trading the pick from next year. You're going into money. You're leaving a mess. Like, Shula left a mess for Jimmy Johnson, and it's happened like that in the past for all kinds of different teams. That you go in, Reggie McKenzie, when he took over in Oakland, he didn't have a first-round pick his first year and a second-round pick his second year, and still he went on to build a playoff team and found one of the best defensive players and a quarterback and all that kind of stuff. So he was able to still overcome all that kind of stuff. It's not easy to do all of that. Now, this is one thing that you touched on that I think the Dolphins need to go on, because you said, what's their identity? Well, I started thinking about that, and I talked about it on the show. The Pittsburgh Steelers have gone through multiple coaches, and they have the same identity.
Mm-hmm.
So the Baltimore Ravens have the same identity. The Green Bay Packers for 3 decades have done the one thing with quarterbacks that you and I used to see when we were growing up, yet nobody else in the NFL does it. And from Mike Holmgren till now, it's always a West Coast style type of offense that you're playing off of. And I think the teams that you see that are having long-term success, they have a way they want to play. And then when they go find a coach, they don't go playing this new style of the coach. No. They find coaches that fit the way they want to do their thing. And that's what they do in Baltimore. That's what they do in Pittsburgh. That's what they do in Green Bay. That's what they're doing now in Kansas City. You
San Francisco, Philly.
Yeah, you got Philly. Dude, Philly, that son of a bitch. Okay, Howie Roseman has made the fucking quarterback and GM interchangeable. Okay? Listen to that shit.
100%.
Listen to that shit. That guy made the GM, I'm sorry, the head coach and the quarterback interchangeable. Nick Foles did nothing, and the other coach got fired in his next stop. And if you put Sirianni somewhere else, he'll get fired. And if you put Jalen Hurts somewhere else, he won't win one game in the playoffs, dude.
100%.
Okay?
100%, Big O.
So
100%.
you got it. So the Dolphins have got, Shula had it for the 70s.
Yeah.
It was the way they play. And then he started to change with the way of, we'll go Woodstock, then we'll go Marino, and then we'll start. And so you can't do that. You gotta go. You gotta find who you are and say, this is who we're going to be. And then whoever's the coach, hey, coach, this is who we're going to be. Do you want to coach like this? Yes. No. Get out of here. This is not our guy. We got to get the guy that wants to be the way we want to be, like the Steelers are, like whatever you develop that you think you are. We're the Green Bay Packers, and this is how we're going to be. I think foundationally, that's the first step. And if you don't get to that first step, it's going to be a lot harder to ever develop anything.
100%, Big O. I've been preaching this for a while, but that's why I say the GM is the most important guy in the organization. He collects the talent. And you have to kind of go old school college football. You get a system and you recruit to the system. And so what I've said along those lines, look at who San Francisco has been to the Super Bowl with recently at quarterback, and not in the last 20 years, right? Colin Kaepernick, Jimmy G, who am I not?
Well, Purdy. I mean, but he didn't get
Purdy,
there.
and Purdy, right? And Purdy.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned Philly with Nick Foles and Jalen Hurts. None of those quarterbacks are going to the Hall of Fame, Big O. None of them. But you surround them. You give them a run game. You give them a defense. You give them good receivers, good O-line, good D-line. You build an entire team. And the quarterback is just as interchangeable as your left guard. Now, that's an exaggeration. But
Peyton Manning couldn't throw for 10 yards and won a championship.
Right.
Bob Greasy threw 6 times in a Super Bowl and won. Why? Because the Dolphins dominated on both sides of the line. They didn't have to. Shula goes, well, why am I going to put the ball in the air? I got 3 running backs. I'm not going to do that. I mean, let's go this way. Brandon Stokely can be your lead receiver, and you can win a Super Bowl in Baltimore. Why? Because the line and Jamal Lewis are going to dominate.
Correct. The 2015 Broncos, they had those quarterbacks, Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler, they combined for 19 touchdowns and 23 interceptions, Big O. 19 touchdowns and 23 interceptions. This was just 10 years ago, and they won a Super Bowl. So, yeah, you're right. And I've been preaching this, that the Dolphins need to get a system, and then you recruit to the system. You get your coach to that system, but you need a strong GM before you get that. You need a Ozzie Newsome, a Howie Roseman to get you going. And so that's
we get excited because the new coach comes with a new scheme, and then the new scheme, well, this guy doesn't fit, and then that guy doesn't fit, and then you're letting and to me, that's been their problem too, because they didn't nail the 2 head coaches, and then the first guy couldn't nail an offensive staff. So your constant changes on offensive staff will then affect what you're changing on offense constantly in talent. And then this coach has had 4 different defensive coordinators. So they're going to want different players because some players won't fit and some players will fit. And so then all of a sudden you're changing. That's why, to me, you're going to say, no, we're going to be a 4-3 team or a 3-4 team from here on out. This is who we are. We're not changing. And that way the talent never really has to be turned over when you turn over the coaches. It's kind of the same. And that's what you want.
Yep, you need a strong GM for that, but you're exactly right. That's what the Dolphins need, is the plan from the top, and you stick to it. You've got to see some success, because you're not going to stick to it if it's not working. But you need to start with a strong GM. He gets his plan in place, and this is how we're going to roll.
Right, but they've never done that.
Nope.
They've tried everything else. They've changed it, all kinds of coaches. They got the up-and-coming coordinator. They got the Hall of Fame coach. They got the great college coach. They've done it every way possible. Up-and-coming defense, offensive coordinators, they have failed every way. But again, they need to get back to saying, this is our identity, and from here on out, this is how we will be built. And then we can go on. I liked what they did this offseason. Now, is it going to save them? No, because I don't think Mike McDaniel's that good of a coach. So...
Hey, Big O, let me say this, though. And I wrote this earlier. This offense has no excuses, Big O. None. You return 8 offensive starters, right? And we can name them: Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, Jonnu Smith, Devon Achane, Aaron Brewer, Alec Ingold, and Austin Jackson. That's 8. You signed James Daniels. That's 9. You got Jonah. That's 10. You got and then you've got your Malik. I guess Malik Washington will probably be your slot receiver.
Yeah.
You've got the offense. Plus, you brought in Bobby Slowett, right? You got yourself a big receiver in Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. You got yourself a power runner in Alexander Madison. You got yourself a draftee in Ollie Gordon II. You got yourself a backup offensive lineman in Larry Borum, who I'm not that thrilled about. You got yourself another inline.
I think we don't talk about Keon enough. I think Keon's the one that's coming along.
Keon will be good. You got yourself a shiny new coach in Bobby Slowik. You've got everything offensively, Big O. This offense, here's what I've said. There's no reason this offense shouldn't average at least 25 points per game. Flores averaged 25.3 in 2020 with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua. Joe Philbin in 2014 averaged 24.3 with Ryan Tannehill. Are you telling me this offense can't be better than those? This offense should average at least 25 points per game, Big O.
I'm not arguing.
You're pretty loaded. I mean, not loaded, but you've got your starters in place, and you've got some key backups in place. You got a new assistant coach in Bobby Slowik, the former Houston offensive coordinator. The defense needs help, but this offense ought to be able to carry this team to, 7, 8 wins, and then we'll see what the defense can chime in.
Yeah, the weakness is the coach. To me, that's the weakness. Will he have his offense prepared? Will they not have pre-snap penalties? Can he win challenges? Can he stick to the running game?
Yeah.
Can he actually? And also, as much as I like Tua the passer, Tua the football player, or he thinks he's a football player, pisses me off. He thinks he can run around and take contact, and that's the part that drives me crazy about him, because if he actually would take care of himself like he did 2 years ago, that's how he has to play. Whether he likes it or not, that's who he needs to be in order to succeed. But, in more years than not, all dating back to Alabama, he's going to do stupid shit to put his body at risk.
Yeah, and Chris Greer kind of called him out on it, saying that we need Tua to stay healthy, and we talked to Tua about it. We'll see if Tua can control himself. Tua's competitive, but that's admirable to the point where it hurts your team, right?
Marino was competitive.
Okay, but that's not right. That's not smart. That's not smart football. So you got to put that in your back pocket, and let's see if Tua can control himself enough to put that in his back pocket and do what's best for the team instead of the competitive spirit and all that. You've got to control that for the good of the team and your career. Got to.
Yeah, by the way, nobody's more competitive than Marino. But Marino, he would throw an interception. He threw a bunch of interceptions, by the way. So let's just, and when he threw the interception, he's F-bombing and he's licking his fingers and raising his pants and walking to the sideline and pointing at somebody that might have run the wrong route or pissed that he threw the interception. But he's not chasing the guy.
Yeah.
He's never even looking at the runner. He's just going off the field and just pissed that he screwed up at that point. Or, maybe there's open field. He might slide for 3 yards. But if you think he's going to put a shoulder into people, Marino knows that I need to be on the field for my team. He knew to compartmentalize that moment and say, I can't let my emotions take the best of me. And, I can do this. I'm little Josh Allen. No, you're not, bro.
Right.
It's just
right. Exactly. Yeah. No, you got to be smart. You've got to be smart, because if Tua's not out there, here's the other thing, Big O. I don't have any faith in Mike McDaniel's ability to develop a backup quarterback. I don't know what Zach Wilson can be, but I just haven't seen Mike White develop, Skylar Thompson develop, Tim Boyle, Teddy Bridgewater, Snoop Huntley.
By the way, I think Tua does it all by himself. What Mike did for him was confidence. nothing else, he doesn't help too. He doesn't get plays in on time. He doesn't stick to the running game when it's working. He doesn't do things to assist his quarterback and make him better. He didn't use Jonnu Smith as much as he should have in the first month of the season, which makes your quarterback better. So he didn't get Jalen Wright more in the mix, which would probably take it a little easier on your lead back. There's a lot of things that he does. And so for me, the MILF monster, I don't believe in that guy at all. This is where I actually give Quinn Ewers a chance. I give him a chance to compete to be a back. I don't think Quinn Ewers has a shot at being an NFL starter, but I got to tell you, as bad as Zach Wilson is, I give Quinn Ewers a chance to compete to be a backup quarterback on this team, believe it or not. That's where I give Quinn Ewers a shot because I don't believe in Zach Wilson. And Quinn Ewers at least has been in like a pro-like system in Texas, has played well, has had big moments and all that kind of stuff. I've seen more from him overall, so I would have a little more hope for him to be your backup quarterback than the MILF monster.
Boy, I see zero chance of Quinn Ewers taking over because remember, Zach is the hand-picked guy. This is who Mike and Chris Greer said was hand-picked. We can develop him, and Mike was, or I can't remember.
Does that give you confidence that it was hand-picked by Mike? Okay.
No. But this is this is like we drafted Liam in the second round. Damn it, he's gonna play, right? I mean, we drafted Jalen Wright. We're gonna cut Chris Brooks. He's gonna play. You got to justify these goals. And when you say that we targeted Zach Wilson and if he gets beat out by a 7th round pick, yikes. And look, Big O, and as far as
that's their fault, and that's McDaniel's fault for thinking that Zach Wilson is actually something. Yes. So I mean,
well, they're thinking they can turn him in their system, but you remember the week before the Kansas City playoff game, I wrote, if Mike doesn't win this game, his seat for 2024 should be very, very warm because their list of accomplishments is very thin. Yeah. And I like Mike. I think that Mike is bright and he's creative and he does some really good things, but I also think that he's hard-headed. He doesn't change his offense enough, and he's going to stick to what he does, and I think that's to the detriment of the team. But I like him. I just wish that there was a strong GM to say, look, Mike, we're getting a power run game. I don't care what you say. What you did those first 2 years didn't work. We've got to do something different, and nobody in that building has a big enough voice to say that.
All right, what are you working on this Sentinel so folks can check you out?
Yeah, I've got the thing with the offensive linemen that hopefully they're the bruisers and not the same old, which means the agility, quick outside zone scheme guys. We're getting the rookies tomorrow, and so we'll talk to them. I want to talk to a couple of the undrafted free agent rookie cornerbacks. I know B.J. Adams is one from UCF. I think there's a kid from Minnesota, I want to say. That's the other, but the Dolphins have had decent success with undrafted players, as we know, when you look at guys like Robert Jones, Cater Kohu, especially. So I think these guys have a chance. Look, I trust Chris Greer to find cornerbacks, whether it's through the draft with like Xavier Howard, undrafted guys, Cater Kohu, Trey, Jalen Ramsey, free agency, Byron Jones. He can find corners, but I don't like that they did not draft a corner. But I do think Greer can find them. So I'm going to talk to these two guys tomorrow, hopefully, and we'll see what's going on there at cornerback.
I think they're going to get a Rasul Butler.
Yeah, me too. They have to, right?
What's it called? Jair Alexander may get released.
Alexander, Asante Samuel Jr., who's
I think they're going to sign one of those guys. And then this reminds me a lot of the Josh Boyer year, where your secondary is not going to be that good. You're going to live off your front seven.
Correct.
So you're going to live off guys getting pressure on the quarterback and not leaving those guys out there hanging out to dry very long. And you do, if Phillips and Chubb come back and stay healthy along with Chop, you've got a really nice mix of pass rushers. And I really love the Grant kid next to Sealer. So you're also going to have pressure and people caving in the pocket. So I think there's a lot of potential for the front seven to actually be really, really effective and entertaining overall. It's just very Josh Boyerish this year. And maybe they should bring back Josh Boyer to hang out with Weaver because he kind of like did that at times. No, seriously, but it'll be the memory of Josh Boyer this year because the secondary, it's like, yeah, bro, we need to get after those
going to be rough.
quickly.
That's going to be rough. But look, hey, and for what it's worth, Big O, I think inside linebacker is a position of strength. I don't know what that's. Yeah, but yeah, I do think you have a chance to control games with your front seven if Chubb and Phillips develop. And look, Jordan Brooks is good, Terrell Dotson is good in pass coverage. So hopefully you're better against tight ends this year. Yeah, I think the front seven has some potential. I just hate that they didn't get a cornerback. We'll see what happens there.
All right. Follow him on Twitter at Chris Perk and catch his work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Better yet, subscribe and support him and all the other terrific writers there. Perk, have a terrific week. Thank you for taking some time. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Big O.
Thank you, sir. There you go. Chris Perkins getting it done. The Perk Man. Love it.